Hello and welcome to Class Solutions Dental Education Podcast, the podcast series where we share knowledge and experience to provide you value to you in your practice. I'm your host, Phil Cole, and I am joined with my co-host, Chris Webb. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about your financial future. We want to give you a dental-specific perspective on setting up your financial systems. So I'm joined today by Steve Huskey. He is with Blue Water Dental Advisors. And he's going to be sharing his thoughts and his experience. So welcome, Steve, to the podcast.
I've heard so much about it. I just had to be on. I really appreciate
it. Well, I'm glad that it has become so popular. So we really appreciate you being on with us. So well, I guess I'll start off with, once again, we're anybody that's listening to this podcast know that we're big, huge pushers for dental specific. And so I guess I would like to ask you, why did you choose to go down that dental specific approach to the business financial planning piece?
Good question, Phil. Appreciate it. It wasn't an overnight type of thing for us. Brandon Wilson, my partner and co-owner in Blue Water Dental Advisors, we had our own separate paths for a number of years. I've been in the financial business for 14, 15 years on my own, and my own practice for 4. And Brandon's been doing financial planning for almost 20 years now. And he worked with a lot of blue collar folks. Most of his clients are business owners. And my clientele base has geared more towards business owners in my later years in practice. And he had a few clients already who were dentists. And so, me being a certified exit planner and him already having the knowledge of working with business owners and some dentists already, we were really taking an inward look at our practices and saying, what are some areas of need that are really largely untouched, underserved, and also need a lot of help and experience and education. And so through our research, we found that there's a dentist down here in Charleston, South Carolina, sometimes 2 of them all on this huge block down the street from us. There's like 15 of them. We drive around and there's a ton everywhere, and they're all making good money, right? But they went to school really specifically to learn about dentists and how to help you perfect your smile and give you the oral health that you need. They didn't necessarily have all that education regarding their finances while they were in school. So they're getting it from multiple sources: Google, YouTube, podcasts, Bing, whatever AI search engine you use. And there's just a lot of stuff out there. So we try to create a concise blanket type of educational videos that anybody could watch and learn from. And we found that we were really good at it. People were giving us really great reception for it. We went and interviewed a bunch of dentists to see if this is a market we even really wanted to explore. And through our conversations with them, we found that there were a lot of pain points. All of them were pretty similar, and we already were really well versed in planning for those specific pain points. So we just came up with Blue Water Dental Advisors as a way to get in the market, have a niche, and basically provide as much education as we could to these dentists who really need it.
Yeah, I think it fits so well with Class Solutions too, because I think that's the biggest thing, education, right? Is just being able to know that you got a place to go, a trusted source that has worked hard and over the years, like ourselves, with 25 years myself of experience, and with all of our coaches and all the people that worked with us, over 300 years of dental experience, to know that you got somebody that can give you the right perspective, and it isn't become something that falls into the trap of just being a typical business. Because I think, if anything, that's something that we run across all the time is there's a lot of, when we deal with especially on the transition side, dealing with different CPAs, financial investment guys, I call them, because I think there's a very big distinct difference. A lot of these guys, they just don't care to know what the business is. They just look at the client as it's cash, right? They're going to pay me my fee, and I'm just going to do my thing. And so I guess for you, what do you consider your unique value that, besides being dental specific, is anything that gives you that just other specific proposition for somebody?
Yeah, I think we do. We have a finite number of steps, something that's really easy for someone to grasp. Initial 15-minute meeting with us of all the things that we know and can provide help with inside of the. Of course, Brandon and I can manage assets. We can underwrite, insurances for the business. We can do all the same things that other advisors can do. I think that the biggest value proposition for us is we take everyone through a process. We don't sit down at the first meeting and already have some type of box we're trying to fit each client into and have some type of proprietary product that we want to push. All of that stuff is uncovered through our meetings. And we find that by having really deep, philosophical, sometimes emotional conversations around what this practice means to not only the business owner and the family who are inside of the practice, but also the employees that are inside your practice, the ones who benefit from your practice being there, as well as, the patients. So it's a whole community that your one practice is really providing for oral health. And so I feel like our biggest proposition is just trying to all the relationships you already have, work with those individuals to better your experience as a business owner and educate you along the way. And we don't product push, man. We're process oriented, and we're not going to try to put something on you that you don't need.
Yeah, I love that I love that it's tailored to like the specific needs of the practice and the practice owner. That's something that we strongly believe in as well. So one of the things you mentioned, which kind of stands out and to me is unique, is a certified exit planner.
Mm-hmm.
And so give me like a real quick rundown on what does that really mean? And then tell me like what is the best time to start talking to somebody about like your exit plan and your exit strategy and what that's going to look like for succession?
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. It's a great question. I got this designation because I really wanted to be more confident when talking to business owners. And business owners have one thing in common. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. There's a 100% guarantee that you're going to leave your business.
Yeah.
And a lot of the focus with business planning is really focused on what's your immediate need. Do you need a 401k? Do you need an insurance policy? Like all that. So I wanted to stand out among my peers. And there's a CEPA, CEPA, and then there's a CEXP. In my experience in talking with CEPAs, the CEXP is more rigorous from a curriculum standpoint, and there's a few essays you have to complete at the end. It took me almost 2 weeks to write them to get this designation. So it took me a long time, and I learned a lot about inside transfers and third-party sales and keeping the business until you can no longer practice, which are really the three doors of exit you can choose.
Mm-hmm.
And our job is to educate the folks around the pros and cons of each, the planning considerations that you need to make, depending on which door you choose to walk through. And the CEXP designation just allows me to have more confident and factual conversations with these business owners around what they're looking for in their lifestyle after they get out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know that typically when you start talking to somebody about planning, you say, hey, the earlier the better, like it from start day one. So why is it so crucial to start talking about and thinking about your exit plan? Like, what are some of the things that help you set yourself apart so that a doctor, no matter where they're at in their career, can come and talk to you and you can help them start looking at that exit planning? So benefits of talking to you late career, mid-career, early career.
I would always say that it's better to start talking to someone and getting educated on all this information sooner than later. And I always mention Stephen because one of his principles of highly successful people is to plan with the end in mind. When you start a business, you should already have an exit strategy planned out. Just like any investment you make. I mean, a business is an equity. You buy into that business or you start the business, and whatever your basis is what you've put into the business, and you want to be able to get a good gain for all the effort and work you've put into the business. And so, like, for instance, when we started Blue Water Dental Advisors, we had a 3, 7, 10, 15-year plan for it drawn up before we even signed the paperwork to get it started. And I think that just makes you really successful. It makes you prepared. It makes you confident in the blueprint you're going to draw for yourself as you build this business together. And then you also give yourself some deadlines. It's just like training for a marathon. I don't know if you guys have ever run one before. I've run about 3. I'm sticking to the half marathons now because they're just too much time consuming. But you have to have an end date. Okay, the marathon is on this date. I need a program that's 6 months long or whatever it is. and then you work towards that goal. So having that goal in mind at the end, when you know 100% of the time you're going to get out of this business, it just makes things much smoother for you. It gives you a light at the end of the tunnel. And also you can bring the culture to the practice that your folks might need in order for them to feel as one with the practice. They're interested in helping you grow. They're interested in helping you get new patients. They feel like they're part of it, and you need to recognize them along the way. So that's all of that stuff is part of the exit strategy, but it just helps everybody feel like a cohesive part of the practice when you have that strategy already set up.
I think that, you know, putting it the way you just put it is exactly what needs to be done. And when we get guys, when it comes to, you know, wanting to sell their practice at the very end, you can really tell the ones that have not thought of an exit strategy, they haven't planned for an exit strategy, because they're the ones that when Chris and I and the rest of class deal with them, they're the ones that are always rushed. Like, what do I got to do real quick to do this? What do I got to do to get this done? You know, blah, blah, blah. And they're always the ones that, I would say not always, 9 times out of 10, the ones that say, don't tell anybody, right? Versus the guys that are, you know, like you said, they have their exit strategy. They shot for, say, 55, and maybe they're 60 now, but they found out at 55 they still love dentistry, right? And they're still having fun, so they don't want to. So they've extended it, but it's still all in mind, and the team knows that what the ultimate goal was, and so there's no surprises. And I will tell you, when we deal with those kind of customers, the how fluid, how easy the transition is, how much everybody is ready to accept the new person on, because they know that they're prepping for that person to take over properly and stuff. It's just night and day difference with seeing someone prepared versus seeing someone that sits there and says, well, I woke up this morning and I hate going to work, and I have for the last week, so get me out of here. You know?
Yeah, that's a good point. And you can tell just on that basic conversation who's planned for it and who hasn't. And in all my conversations with business owners, not just dentists, but those in manufacturing and home remodeling and all the different clients that I have, the conversation goes like this: like, well, sir, when do you want to get out of your business? Maybe within 5 to 7 years. And let's say we never did anything about it, right? I come to you 5 years later, 7 years later, and I say, all right, you know, how's the work going on that exit strategy? Oh, I'd push it off another 5 to 7 years. It's because some of these business owners are so they don't do the lemming effect. I call it the lemming effect. I don't know if that's trademark, but maybe I should. But it's they don't take their head up from the business to look around and see how to work on the business, the blind spots inside the business. And so they just keep their head down, you know, and they work on the, work inside the business a lot. And, you know, there's no dress rehearsal for this. It's the largest financial transaction of your life. This particular part of planning is very underserved. And, you know, there's sometimes a lot of family issues inside of this as well, especially if, you know, you're an aged dentist practice owner and maybe your son or daughter went to school and they've come in and they've kind of expected some type of nepotism. Maybe that happens, you know, or, you know, you've got some legacy issues where you have, you want to sell this business and part of your legacy is to give some of those proceeds to one kid. And then, you know, there's a family member already inside of that. How do you figure out this legacy issues, which people really don't think about inside of that too? That's where the retirement planning kind of comes in. But, you know, because this is the largest financial transaction of your life, you should not put it off. You need to have at least a conversation with someone who's well-versed in it to give yourself an idea of when it even makes sense. Do you have the capacity to get out when you want to? Is it going to give you the best result?
When it comes to the financial planning piece, for it, you know, the ADA has has statistics out and stuff. They don't start until the age of 46 and a half. There was over 62% of the dentists. But when you're dealing with the dentist, knowing that they, you know, we're now at there's a couple different polls that you and I have talked about, where, you know, 69 to 73 years old before the average dentist retires now. I mean, when people ask us when's a good time to start thinking about retiring, we always tell them we want to meet them at least 10 years, even 15 years out, because once again, there's so many other things that there are to do for that practice. What we also run into a lot of times though is financial guys that sit there and say they don't even want to start working with a dentist until they have X amount of money involved. What's the downfall of, you know, waiting for that? Or what's the downfall of dealing with somebody like that? Because I just feel like every time I hear that, I cringe that, you know, it's like, hey, you got to have X amount of dollars in the bank. Because to me, that's one of those things where I feel sometimes dentists are praying for their practice to be the retirement, and it's not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the sale of your business should really just be the icing on the cake of all the work you've already put into this. And speaking about cakes, I mean, it is just like using the right recipe in the cookbook that you have. There's different steps you need to take. There's different amounts of time that each step needs to be, cultivated inside of what you're trying to build. And so if you put the sugar in at the wrong time or you put the butter in at the wrong time, it doesn't always work. So in order to make the best cake at the end, you have to follow that recipe to a T. And it, if you don't do it that way, it's just not going to work out in the best possible result. I mean, you can not plan, right? And you could sell your business to the highest bidder, but could your business have been worth $2 million more? Could you have ramped it up in the last 5 years and done a better job of patient retention and key employee retention inside of your business? Because that's what's ultimately desirable for someone who may want to purchase you if it's a third party. The associate as well, like were they in the practice long enough to know the culture, know the clients, and know the procedures, and know the standard operation you guys do? Is that all well informed, and is everybody on the same page with you? Like those are the types of things that not everybody really considers. Most of the folks I've spoken with in the past 6 months around retiring or getting out of the practice were the ones that were so burnt out they were ready to get out yesterday. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot I can do from them. I can make that more of a retirement planning case for them and say, hey, with whatever it is you get from this practice, I can certainly help you with that. But we probably should have met 7 years earlier and done something about it. So for those who are listening that maybe are waiting to push this out, just consider what your life would look like had you done some more planning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not slowed down because you were getting tired and you were getting sick of it, and cutting down days and things like that, where you end up on that downward trend that not only makes it harder to attract the right buyers, but then also it's harder for those buyers to get financing for it.
It is.
So
Yeah, because you're showing less and less income every year as a practice. And usually whenever a dentist wants to get out or they're nearing retirement, they go from working 5 days, 3 days to 2.5 days. Sometimes they're only in once, and they'll shut down some of the multiple practices maybe they had because they only want the one now that they can manage. But really, you should be in growth mode in your last 5 years. It's just like a W-2 employee. In the last 5 years of their working career, it's the highest average earning years of your entire life. And so people who tell me they want to retire early, I'm just like, why? Like you could be making so much more money and add another $100,000 per quarter, to your savings or whatever it is you want to do. Like you're really cutting yourself short. It's the same thing could be said for taking Social Security early. Like why would you take only 80% of what you could get when you could take 132% of it? There's some things you really need to do, really need to look at before you make that decision. And you don't have to follow your friends or your family members. Do something that's custom for what you need.
yeah.
So I want one thing for you to explain to the audience and stuff too is when we sat down and we've gone over your plan and so forth. One of the things I think that's been very unique that I think is something that we push big time, and that is the importance of the team, right? And having that team and making sure that they are understood as a valuable part of that practice and stuff. I know you guys focus on that team retention and stuff like that. Give us just a little bit of your thoughts on that, because I think that out of all the financial planners I've talked to and stuff, I've never seen anybody actually bring up the team or concentrate on the team as being a part of that financial, and maybe not the financial piece, but as part of that, the financials going through their career. Explain that a little bit to us.
That was another value driver and differentiator for our practice is most financial advisors that come in are asking you about your retirement plan. Let me take a look at your fidelity bond. Do you have enough participants in your plan? What are the fees look like? What investment choices do you have? And 401ks are all well and good, but no one's going to stay at your practice because you have a 401k. it just makes you an eligible employer, right? You give that benefit so you can attract new people into your practice. In order for you to keep those key folks intact so that you can continue on that growth mode and that path that you're on, you need to ensure the folks who are critical to the success of your practice stay on throughout the growth. And so it's really an emotional conversation that you're going to have with these folks. You need to go to them and first off, never use language like I would like you. No one likes to feel handcuffed to anything. So what you need to strive to communicate to this key person in your business, whoever it is that you have in mind, is I recognize the work that you're doing for us. I recognize the amount of effort you put in and the way the patients feel when you work with them. You're doing an excellent job. I would like to provide you with a reward or an incentive package above and beyond what I'm already offering some of these rank and file people, because I find you so critical to the success of this practice. And eventually I would like to get out of this practice, and you're an integral part of that practice. So there's some really, I don't like to use the word discriminatory, but it is a discriminatory by the IRS guidelines type of plan you can put in place for them that makes these key employee people more vital to the success that you're going to have in the next few years. So some of the stuff that we do would be like, number one, have a conversation. Why do you get out of bed every morning and come to work? Is it for your family? Are you striving to pay down your mortgage in the next 10 years? Are you trying to send your kids to college? Is there a big vacation that you deserve to take with your spouse at your 25th, anniversary? Why are the things that are in your mind is something that's important to you? So when you have that, really philosophical conversation with them, they'll tell you, they're going to say like, oh, I do this because I really enjoy dentistry, or I want to help people, but those are cliche answers. You want to get to the nitty gritty. Like, what is it that's really important to them? Yep. Secondly, you can't give them a cash bonus up front. You can't give them quarterly stuff, because once they get that bonus, they can immediately leave and go somewhere else. They're waiting around to get that bonus, they have an offer letter in their hand. So you have to find something that's feasible for you as a practice owner and exciting enough for the key employee to stay on. And you have to defer it out for a specific amount of time. Let's say your exit strategy is supposed to start in 7 years. Well, in order for this to be acceptable from a buyer's perspective, you might want to keep them on for 10. So can you defer a huge payout for this employee for 10 years? And then can you keep them on an additional 2 to 3 years after that 10-year period by paying out that big bonus in a structured type of settlement? We're not talking about annuities here. We're not talking about anything, among that sort like you hear on JG Wentworth. It's nothing like that. It's mostly like, we have this fund available for you. It's either a sinking fund, or it's an insurance policy, or it's a 2 tickets to anywhere you want to go. It's whatever you want, but we'll pay you out because we feel like you're very valuable. So that's just some of the stuff that we do, and it does set us apart from the retirements and the benefits advisors that are out there.
Absolutely.
I love that creativity. Okay, so we kind of hit it a little bit, but just one of the things that I see when I look at your guys' website and I see some of the marketing is that you guys really focus on being like the quarterback for the owner, for the business, and then for like the employees. So just kind of walk us through real quick. What does that look like, and how do you set yourself up to be that coach?
Thanks for the question. I will say, and first and foremost, we are not coming into the relationship to crowd anybody else out who you may already trust. If you have a financial advisor, awesome. If you have a CPA, fantastic. If you have an agent, wonderful. We're not here to replace any of those people. We're here to create cohesion between everybody. So there's a microeconomic relationship, which most of us are in terms of our trusted professionals on our team. And then there's the macro advisor type of experience that we want to provide. So I always use the term of going to the symphony. I just had a friend tell me he went to the symphony this weekend in Charleston, which was great. And it brought this up to me is, if you ever get up to the symphony early and you're sitting down trying to find your seats, you got your popcorn, whatever it is, and you're listening to all the musicians in the pit. They're probably tuning up their instruments. They're probably practicing those pieces that they're really not familiar with yet, trying to make sure it's perfect. But if they're all doing it at the same time, it's a cacophony. It doesn't sound good at all, right? But once the conductor gets up on stage and they all start following along with their movements, they make a beautiful piece of music together. So we kind of consider ourselves the quarterback, yes, but the conductor really for these relationships. We want to create a financial mission statement with the dental practice owner, communicate that language to all their trusted professionals, and then literally or figuratively in the same room, share what their goals are, share how we can help each other, share how we can make the client's experience much more carefree because we're all handling it on the back end. So we want to give them more time back in their day to spend with their families because we know how hard they work. And so that's kind of the quarterback relationship we have with our folks.
Yeah, I love, like, on your website. Sorry, I know you were going to jump in there, Phil, but
No, it's
I
fine.
just love on your website, you guys have in there, like, it takes a village to run a practice, right? And so these doctors, for however many years they've been practicing, have been trying to wear all the hats. And so when they bring in trusted professionals, I love that idea of, like, hey, we're all going to come together, and now we're going to create this symphonic, the symphonic piece here together to get you to the end where you want to be, so that you can wrap it up, take your bow, and ride off into the sunset. And then,
Exactly.
we get to carry you there.
Yeah.
So I just
Exactly.
love that concept.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important, and I think that in any business, that's probably the hardest thing, right? Is when you're the business owner itself, to give up the reins, and to kind of somewhat put that trust in someone else, a lot of times. But man, I tell you, when you get that cohesion and you know that you got those trusted advisors, and I think that's the one thing for us that we always preach is, making sure that they're dental specific, because when they understand that business, the dental business it's different. And you talk to anybody, any of the team members. I know that when we do our startups, when you talk to the general contractors, if they've never done dental and they see a dental plan, they're like, whoa, this is complicated. And it's like, yeah, because it's like no other construction, right? So it is really, really important for that. So, well, we could talk about this for a long time, but I want to thank you, Steve, for giving us your input and your understanding of what you guys do at Blue Water Dental Advisors. It's definitely a pleasure and joy, and I hope anybody that's listening reaches out. Steve, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you so that they can have that conversation?
I appreciate it. It can be scary for non-dentists to go to the dentist, and it can also be scary for people to kind of just jump right in bed with a financial advisor. So go out and do some research on us, please. Like go to bluewaterdentaladvisors.com. Check out our blogs, check out our white papers. We've got educational videos on there. We've got a CE video that you can watch and get an hour of credit. We've got a 9 video series, about 3 to 4 minutes each, different concepts that we educate on. So I'd start there first. Go to our website, bluewaterdentaladvisors.com. And you can also reach out at info@bluewaterdentaladvisors.com. And we'd be happy to just have a 15-minute conversation with you to see if our philosophies align and if it makes sense for us to talk any further.
Awesome. Well, thanks once again, Steve. If you enjoyed our show, please rate, review us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Phil Cole. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.
Podcast is for informational purposes only, not to be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. Although the information has been gathered from sources believed to be reliable, please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon only when coordinated with individual professional advice. Guest speakers and their firms are not affiliated with or endorsed by PASS, Guardian, or Blue Water Dental Advisors, LLC, and opinions stated are their own. Guardian, its subsidiaries, agents, and employees do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. Consult your tax, legal, or accounting professional regarding your individual situation. All investments and investment strategies contain risk and may lose value. Michael Huskey is a registered representative and financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, PASS, OSJ 6115 Park South Drive, Suite 200, Charlotte, North Carolina 28210, 704-552-8507. Securities products and advisory services offered through PASS, member FINRA SIPC. Financial representative of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, New York, New York. PASS is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. Blue Water Dental Advisors, LLC is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PASS or Guardian. Blue Water Dental Advisors, LLC is not registered in any state or with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission as a registered investment advisor. 2023-155-279 expires 5/25.